think outside the box, if you will. I mean, go there, go off campus. Let's think this through. And sure enough, that's where the Mustang was born. When it finally hit, it took the country by storm.
Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. This is the show where we put cars into the context of your everyday life. And why? Because this is the Motor City. You know, we'll give you some guidance on things you really need to know about your cars, but we're not going to make any apologies for our decidedly Detroit perspective on things today. We've got a very important show. If you've ever bought gasoline at a gas station and put it in your car, or know someone who has, you're going to want to pay attention to our topic of the day, because we're going to be talking about the EPA's misguided ethanol mandate that's coming up to us soon to a gas station near you. And to put it all into context for us, we brought in none other than Chris Sawyer. Chris is the editor and founder of thevirtualdriver.com, the best automotive blog on all of the internet. And Chris, I know you're passionate about fuel technologies, and this guy really knows his fuel. So we're gonna put you on the spot, and we're gonna talk about how important this is. But before we get to that, thanks for coming, by the way, Chris. I need him on this one because this topic drives me crazy. But before we get to that, let's find out what's happening in the news. Okay, first one, I know a lot of you guys go way back to the 70s, and you bought cars that were called Datsuns.
Yes.
Yeah, and
they should have kept that name.
That Datsun, you know, Datsun. The guys around here, we saw the 240Zs, and the Datsuns were everywhere. The V210s, the 510s. Yeah. And Datsun went away, and it created Nissan. Nissan became what we know as Datsun in the United States, and Nissan.
Well, that was the name of the company.
That was the name of the company. Yeah,
everywhere. Yeah.
So now they've come with an idea. They're going to bring the Datsun name back. Can you believe it? Yeah. So last year they said they're bringing it back. This year they've showed us their first car. They're going to sell under the brand. It's called the Go.
Better than the Stop,
It's a 5-door front drive hatchback. It's got a 1.2 liter in it. And
Okay.
here's a little picture of what the Go looks like. It's got a 5-speed. The styling on this little car, we got a blue one here, was done in Japan. But all the development work, Chris, was done in India because that's...
Also no leather seats?
No, that's right.
Okay.
Oh, holy cow. That's going to reflect the market taste in the cars because it'll be built in India. It'll go on sale in India early next year. It's only like $6,700 for the car.
Really?
$6,700.
That's cheap.
Now, I'm not sure that I would go for it, but I'm stretching here. But there are so many now, these little micro cars being made overseas that are just tiny little engines, tiny little cars, city cars. Do you think they're ever going to catch on here? I mean,
They're going to have to. CAFE standards. 54.5 miles per gallon by 2020? Yeah, you bet.
I'm here from the government, and I'm here to pick your car.
Yeah.
Well, listen, don't even tell me that. Why don't you give me another headline.
Okay, here's one that says, Consumer Reports criticizes hybrid MPG numbers.
No.
Yeah, in the August issue, by the way, it says that they complain that hybrids and small displacement engines with turbos, remember that, with turbos, don't deliver the fuel economy the EPA label says they should. They said that 55% of the hybrids fall at least 10% short of the rating.
Wow.
28% of the small displacement engines with turbos miss the mark, and only 10% of conventional cars fall short of the EPA rating.
That's over half of the cars that are hybrids don't make the EPA number?
Wait, have you ever driven a hybrid?
Yes.
It's a very different driving style to get that thing to do it. You have to be ease into the throttle, ease out of the throttle.
You're playing a game with the little dashboard.
Well, yeah, exactly. See if they're growing leaves or whatever and all that. Well, no, it actually can be fun, but
sure.
And I usually beat the daylights out of those numbers by quite a bit.
So listen. So if you're buying a car, a hybrid or a turbo diesel or a turbo.
Well, no, diesel, no.
No, diesel.
But
a turbo gasoline car.
Turbo gasoline, and the turbo gas motor is funny.
Well,
because you and I both have a friend, and we know why.
So why is it then, why don't you tell the audience, why is it then when you have a turbo, you think, oh, I've got this little...
Because you're putting your foot in it and all of a sudden the thing just goes ding and you go, oh, that's fun.
And why is that, folks? Because it's fun. It's fun to drive. Right. So you bought the little turbo because you want to get the fuel economy, but it goes
Unless you stay out of the turbo, you're not going to get the fuel economy.
So it gives you the opposite effect.
Uh-huh.
You know, don't buy a car solely on the EPA number. I guess
that's exactly. And change your driving style can make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
If you're smoother in how you accelerate, how you brake, if you anticipate more, you look far down the road and you say, hey, that light's going to turn red and I better slow down, all that sort of stuff. If you do that, you can save an awful lot of fuel and still have a heck of a lot of fun driving.
In other words, you're not behind me and no smoky tire burnouts.
Well, yeah, there's that.
Well, I've got one. There's one we've talked about before. The Japanese have increased production in the United States. So all the good news you've heard about the U.S. automakers making a rebound, well, guess what? Who's cashing in on it? The Japanese automakers.
Of course, the yen
doesn't. Now, last year, that's right. Yeah. The yen, because of the exchange rate, it makes it very profitable to sell cars in the United States. And they say their vehicle production over in Japan jumped 36%. 3.3 million.
So their U.S. production.
Yeah, 3.3 million U.S. Cars and trucks. We're 3.3 million. That's nearly a million more than 2011. That is a ton of Japanese cars coming over here. Market share up by 2%, and they expect it to go up by another. Now, much of it is due because of the yen, but on the other hand, cars, they're imports to Japan. Our ability to sell cars over there, the total market of imports over there, 170,000 liters. Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, which means Japan remains essentially closed to the U.S. automakers, folks. They're being the third largest car market in the world.
Well, it's not just closed, but it's also that the image isn't there. They look at our cars the way that we used to look at things that said made in Japan right after the war.
Yeah, well then.
Oh, yeah, really.
That's great, but just don't talk to me about fair trade. That's the problem. Why don't you take one, Chris?
Okay, Bosch commissions a study with the University of Michigan, and it revealed that diesels,
well, that's one of your favorite topics.
My favorites, have a lower total cost of ownership than gasoline vehicles in the U.S.
Wait. Diesels cost more money to buy, and the fuel costs more.
You think you're smart, don't you? Don't you, buddy? Yeah, well, you're wrong. Anyway, the researchers reported that diesel owners save between $2,000 and $6,000,
even though the car is more expensive,
over a 3 to 5 year period,
over gasoline,
despite the fact that they cost more, including the fuel costs more. Why is that? Because you're getting 40% better fuel economy out of diesel. You are saving a solid 10%, if not more, depending on how you drive. So they also don't depreciate as fast as gasoline cars.
We've talked about that before on the show.
And 11 of the 12 diesels in the study held their value better than similar gas cars over a 3-year term.
See, now that's why you watch Cars in Context.
That's right. So you know about diesels.
Yeah. See,
and what an idiot this guy is.
EPA. Too bad the EPA doesn't back diesels.
You just didn't buy it. No, they don't. They don't want them.
All right, listen.
This one I love. You got to wait to hear this.
Speaking of idiots. Folks, we've showed you on one of our shows before from the North American International Auto Show from Cobo Hall some crazy cars that the automakers have stooped to. Mostly the Japanese makers and the Korean makers want to make cars off of comic book characters. We've showed them before. Now, believe it or not, your friendly folks from Toyota are coming out with something they call the SpongeBob-inspired concept car out of a Toyota Highlander. Yeah, I'm not making this up, folks. Seriously. It's wrapped with a full exterior SpongeBob wrap with his eyeballs and the nose and his thumbs up. There's a photo of it. This is a real deal. The faces of all your favorite characters on the show appear on all the headrests in the vehicle, and the roof makes it look like you're underwater looking up from none other than Bikini Bottom. So why in the heck are they doing this? This is driving around. It's all part of Toyota's Happy Driving promotional tour, which is going throughout the United States all year. As SpongeBob would say, Chris, good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't know. You lost me with Bikini Bottom.
Well, I'm telling you, folks, if you buy this, your kids are going to want you to buy this car.
Or they're going to be really embarrassed and hope that they can find other parents.
If you thought driving a minivan was really embarrassing enough, buy this and then drive around town and grow. I'm telling you, it's really cool.
I want Stewie on the side of my car.
Okay. Well, that's what we have in the news. We're going to come back and put Chris into the driver's seat. We're going to talk about the EPA's misguided mandate to give us 15% ethanol in our fuels coming up right after this. Hi, and welcome back to Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. Today we've got a very... Hi, and welcome back to Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. Today we've got a very important show. We're talking about the E85, the ethanol mandate that's coming up in very short time for your car and truck, coming to a gas station near you. We've really got to take a look at this mandate. What does it mean to you, your car, and your wallet? To sort it all out, we've brought none other than Chris Sawyer. Chris, thanks for coming on Cars in Context again. Chris is the editor and founder of thevirtualdriver.com. In my opinion, and in most people that read it, the best auto blog on the internet.
Okay, you and 12 other people.
Okay, well, I got to tell you, I know that fuels is something you're well versed on. That's why you're here to talk about this. Chris, let's talk about the whole idea behind starting to take our gasoline, which we pay a pretty penny for, and someone came up with a great idea to start blending our gasoline with ethanol, because we know how to do that well here in America as well, and most of it is corn-based. But it was a lesson learned thing, and I think the government and the EPA got involved after they saw South America, particularly Brazil, get blended fuels.
Right, they did with that, but they also started way back with the E85 when they said we're going to give you a flex fuel mandate. It was a great way for the automakers to say, hey, we've got these cars that go 80, 85. Can you give us 2 for 1 on that so our CAFE works out really well?
Okay, so it was a CAFE deal.
It was a CAFE deal,
okay.
And you can hardly find E85, and the cars are mostly running on gasoline anyway.
Yeah,
so it's just a ridiculous mandate. When E15 came up, it actually was E5 and then E10.
I remember E5.
E5 didn't really make much difference because most cars can run on even carbureted cars. E10, a little bit of a problem, because at that point you really start running into a corrosive problem with the fuel system.
So E10, folks, means that you have your gasoline and 10% of that mix.
Up to 10%. It can be anywhere from 0 to 10%.
So when you buy E10,
you don't know where it is.
You could be somewhere between 0 and 10% is alcohol.
Yep.
And the other 90% is gasoline.
Yep.
Okay, so now they're saying, okay, you've had E10. There's some issues with E10 because alcohol has got some things in the gasoline.
It attracts water like nobody's business. Okay. The tanks themselves at the service stations will get filled with water. Oh, they have to have pumps that take that off. It puts that water into your system because it's hygroscopic. It just attracts it out of the air.
The molecules, right?
It will eat away your rubber in your fuel system if
Alcohol's
it isn't
tough
specifically designed for this.
Right.
And it will corrode your fuel lines. So if you have an older car and you're running E10 right now, good luck.
Well,
that's why you have to put in those fuel additives for older cars.
Okay, then it keeps from corroding out the fuel lines and then eating away at
away the rubber.
Like the fuel lines are rubber, and if they're not treated specially for alcohol, they'll rot and break.
Oh, yeah.
You could have an underhood fire.
You have a sprinkler system, you bet.
Oh, my Lord.
Absolutely, and it gets worse with E15 because it is that much higher.
Okay, so now the government's mandating, that we've done this to E10, and I think we're doing okay with it. And the idea is, well, we're saving the planet somehow, Chris?
No.
Well, we're saving the planet because we're being green.
No.
We're 10% we don't have to import 10% of our gasoline. That was Okay, well, Chris, what's the
We're only getting 8% of our fuel from the Middle East to begin with in the United States. So let's just put that one out away. If you're doing anything, you're keeping imports from Canada, okay?
Yeah.
So, and we need that pipeline anyway. The fact of the matter is that it is corn-based ethanol.
Okay.
It is still corn-based ethanol. That there are studies out there that have been shunted to the side that say the Arab Spring started with E10 mandate.
Right.
That we took so much corn out of the system that we basically rocketed food prices in the Middle East and elsewhere, especially Africa.
Yeah.
So that we could feel good about ourselves.
Well, corn it's a huge export. It's a great market for corn. We do well with it. And they figured we had so much that we could divert all that towards ethanol.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be, we're using less
fuel.
It's
overage, right?
Well, yes, but it's getting worse than that because we're taking fields out of productive service. We go to 15, and it's not any cleaner. You're not going to be reducing your emissions level. You're adding even more water attracting properties into your fuel system now. You have to go to another set of rubber hoses and lines and grommets and all of that.
Just because 15 is tougher than 10. Okay.
And on top of it, if you have a carbureted car, it can't tell what it's running on. Sure. If it was pure E15, everything was 15% alcohol, you could adapt to that.
Sure.
But because it's anywhere in that level, the carburetor cannot adjust because it doesn't have electronics on it. So your lawnmower, your snow blower, all those things won't be able to do it. Your classic car is going to be destroyed by this. This has scared the living daylights out of Volkswagen, who is vociferously against this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And they've got one of the better fuel tech people in the world there.
I just find this unbelievable, Chris. Now, the automakers themselves, they built these cars. They know what they will stand. They've tested it. They know what damage all this will cause.
Absolutely.
And yet, the EPA insists that this mandate's going to go forth.
Right, because it's written in a Senate bill that got passed and George Bush signed it.
But what does that have to do with the reality of the fact that it's not helping?
It's politics. It's not reality.
Oh my goodness, folks! When you think about the EPA they're not scientists. These are government bureaucrats that are just basically
pushing an agenda.
They have an agenda, and they believe that they're doing good and they're doing things for the good of humanity and all Americans. But actually, the damage to the car, who covers that?
Nobody.
You get the government.
The government isn't going to cover it. The fuel handler isn't going to cover it.
What about the oil company who put
oil company isn't going to handle it?
The gas station who put. So if you
put, it's going to come down, and it's going to come down to.
So we're going to get stuck with the bill to pay our car.
Darn right you are. Yeah, and we're talking about an older car, $2,000, easy $2,000.
Well, now a lot of new cars today have plastic gas tanks, but my old classic has a metal gas tank. So I'm going to get rust in the gas tank.
Potentially,
I have metal fuel lines.
The only saving grace you have for an older car is that it doesn't get driven as much. But unfortunately, if you have E15 in the tank, it's going to be attracting even more water in all the time.
And it sits there in storage for months at a time.
People don't realize that in Brazil,
Brazil,
you have a separate tank to draw the water off. You also have another tank that has gasoline in it because when it gets cold there, ethanol won't start. So your starting capacity is going to go down a bit. Now, they're running pure ethanol in Brazil. They have to run gasoline to get the engine going.
Their ethanol comes from sugar cane.
Which they have abundance
a lot of it, but even so, it's the same issue. It's the same issue. And what you're not being told is that your vehicle either has to adapt or it gets damaged. And the bottom line is, all right, so is it any cheaper then?
No.
So the price of our fuel isn't going down?
No, you're losing thermal activity in that fuel because gasoline has more energy than alcohol does.
Right.
The only thing that is
what's the benefit?
The only possible benefit is if you read the EPA's proposal for taking sulfur out of gasoline. They have buried in the back of it, they want to go up to E30. So 30% alcohol.
Oh, my Lord.
Actually, the car companies are behind this because it would, of course, they're not going to have to put in the blending pumps and all of that stuff. But if they run 30% alcohol, and it's a guaranteed 30% alcohol, then they can actually meet the fuel economy standards a bit easier because they'll be running higher compression ratios. What you can do with alcohol, because its knock properties are so much better than gasoline, it actually acts much like lead did back in the day, that you put that in and you can run a much higher compression ratio, 12, 14, 16 to 1.
So you can eke more power out of a smaller displacement engine.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And so you'll see, I can already tell you, you're going to see 1 liter 4-cylinder engines in mid-size cars.
Most people go to the 7-Eleven to buy a 1 liter
Your engine's going to be that big, trust me.
Well, Chris, this is just mind-boggling to me that we're having a mandate like this. Basically, what it's costing the American driving public. It's costing every one of us at the pump. It's costing us with our vehicles. It's costing us later on down the road with our maintenance of our vehicles. And there's essentially it's driving the cost, and the cars become more complex. They can become more expensive.
Yes.
Again, we're bearing the huge weight of someone's idea, this experiment in greenology, for no perceived immediate or future benefit other than maybe someday there's some way we can work around it if we all ran out of gasoline.
And sing Kumbaya, yes.
I guess so. Folks, please write your congressman. Now, when is this? What are we looking at? 2014?
2014. They may have kicked it back to 2015, but they really want to get 2014.
But this is something that's on the books.
It's right around the corner, and it could hurt. It could hurt hard. it could hurt us all.
It's time we, I think, wake up and write our congressmen and pay attention to our legislators, because they're being fed the same kind of thing from the EPA as the rest of us. And
it's called bull.
So not everything that you hear about. Ethanol is good, the corn-based fuels, it's an industry in and of itself, but the magic bullet, it is not. This is not the answer to free yourselves from foreign oil, or to make a life in America a greener, better place. Chris, I really appreciate you straightening. You're going to have to come back and follow this for us now.
Absolutely.
And we're going to have to keep monitoring the situation.
Sure, now I got to work for you too.
Folks, that was the bottom line. That was the Cars in Context spin from what's going on with this misguided mandate on this crazy E85 fuel and what's going to happen in a year or so. But you know, right now we've got a time for another little part of our show that we love to bring up. It's called Pride in My Ride. Now this is the part of the show where you send me a picture of your vehicle and you tell me why you have pride in your ride, and we'll put it on the air. Now this time, Pride in My Ride, I happen to know this person really, really well. Now you may,
really?
Yeah. You folks, you may, his name is Jerry Clor. And Jerry Clor,
should have known better.
Yeah, Jerry Clor lives in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He moved away because of a job, of all things.
Oh,
yeah,
that would do it.
Do anything for work. He moved away from this job, and he bought himself. He said, you know, now that I've got the corner office, I want myself something fancy. I just want a little sedan. So he bought himself a 2009 Lincoln MKX, and he said, you know what? I'm going to put some big 20-inchers on it.
Nice wheels.
Yeah, beautiful new. He said, you know what? I came off. It's an off-lease vehicle, folks. We've been telling you before. If you want to save some money on an off-lease, that's the way to go. He's got this fancy Lincoln. He bought this car and starts driving to work each day. He went out and got himself some new wheels. He's not only got pride in his ride. He says now it looks well in the executive parking spots over there in his company on the other side of the...
When you said he had a corner office, I thought this was the janitor one.
No.
Oh.
There's his 20-inch chromes, as you got to have.
So he's doing better than you.
There's Jerry Clor in Bethlehem, PA.
God,
Jerry
he looks like you.
Jerry does not watch us on cable. He watches us on YouTube. And that's right, you can watch Cars in Context. It's called Cars in Context TV. All of our past episodes will be on the YouTube channel. So Jerry, thanks for sending in. I think he only sent that in because his older brother Jim was on Pride in My Ride.
That'd do it.
If you want your car shown on Pride in My Ride, send it to me, Clor at carsincontext.com. A picture of your car and why you have pride in it, and we'll be happy to put it on the air.
Amazing how much he looks like you.
What's even more fun is that sometimes, every once in a while, we get viewer mail at the show, but we have to ask Lauren Parrott. Lauren, is it possible that Cars in Context has viewer mail for this week?
Yes, you do.
And here she is, WMTV's own Lauren Parrott.
Thank
you, Lauren.
You're welcome.
I'm just as hot off the press.
Hot off the press.
Lauren has got us some viewer mail. Thanks for sending in your mail, folks. Chris, why don't you take the first one from one of our viewers?
Okie doke. Now this one comes from Mike L. in Farmington Hills. That's where I live.
Oh, okay.
Who watches Cars in Context on AT&T Uverse Channel 99, just like I do.
All right.
And he says, Dear Chris, I own a classic car that was built in the 1950s and recently restored for me to drive mostly in the summer.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Cool.
Are today's fuels bad for my engine because they no longer contain lead? I was told that my car was originally designed to use leaded fuel, which is served to somehow make the valves work better. Do I need some sort of additive? Yes, you do. You need two things.
Folks, remember leaded fuel.
Yes. The leaded fuel got onto your valve seats, and that's what kept them from wearing away.
Like a coating.
Exactly. So now you can either change them to hardened valve seats, which if you're going to rebuild the engine, that's a perfect thing to do.
Yeah.
If not, there are fuel additives out there that will help you do this, and you can find them at Pep Boys anywhere.
Oh, okay.
But another thing you need to have, because they've taken it out of the oil, is ZDDP.
Oh, that's right.
And ZDDP is
zinc.
Yes, it's a zinc diallophosphate, something or other. I can't even tell you what it is.
Okay.
And what it does is it prevents your valves from wearing even more, especially your cams.
So metal against metal.
Metal against metal.
So they've removed the lead from the gasoline, and now they've removed the ZDDP. So if you have an old car like Mike in Farmington Hills, you've got to put all this back in.
Yes.
These cars were designed to work on that.
You bet.
So to get the ZDDP back in your oil, do you have to buy an additive again?
Yep, a ZDDP additive.
So why is this stuff disappearing? Well, we know lead in gasoline was bad.
Was bad for a number of reasons. The ZDDP was because supposedly it fouled the catalyst for cars, and so because they're running on the edge, That's what they did.
Well, Mike from Farmington Hills, thanks for sending that one in. That's really good advice, folks. If you do have an older car or a classic car, especially ones that don't use roller, flat tappet,
Yep.
you really need
roller rockers.
You need to pay attention to that. And you guys, so if you were up on the Woodward Dream Cruise and you wonder why your engine went,
now you
it's
know.
not your.
Thanks the government.
Don't take it back to your engine builder. You might want to, go to your auto parts store and find that out. I've got a piece of your mail, thanks to Lauren Parrott. This one comes to us from Paul P. He lives in Harper Woods, where I live, and he watches Cars in Context on WOW Cable Channel 10. WOW Cable, thanks for bringing us to all those viewers. It says, "Dear John, I enjoy your show." Well, there you go. Thank you. We enjoy giving it to you.
I didn't know you had that many drinkers who were watching the show. Okay.
He said, Paul loved the episode we did with Chris Sawyer on the red light camera scam. Okay, that was a recent show we've done.
Mm-hmm.
He said it sparked a discussion with my neighbor, who I probably know, who thinks that red light cameras would be a good thing for Detroit. Well, apparently Paul's neighbor did not watch Cars in Context. It says, "John, are you going to re-air that episode that I can tell him to watch it?" And the answer is, Paul, I don't know. I'm like kind of Jay Leno on this point of my career. I don't like to run too many reruns. We've got a lot of great shows that we'd love to rerun. Chris, you've done a lot of great shows, especially the one on gasoline and the real secrets behind gasoline. Folks, we've been told a lot of things about the price of gasoline these days. Most of it is lies. And our Cars in Context show brought that to light. On the red light camera show, I think it's really important. The week we aired that just a few weeks back, it was on Detroit major networks saying, Detroit's looking at red light cameras. If you haven't seen the show, though, you can go to YouTube and watch Cars in Context TV on the YouTube channel. So I'm not sure if we will re-air it. We should. Maybe someday we will. But if you can't see them on cable live that week, we'll go to the YouTube channel. Check out Cars in Context TV.
And we're much more informative than dancing kittens.
That's true. Or baby panda bears that roll over on their back and get scratched or something.
Oh,
although I know that happens to you. If you have a question you'd like to see read on the air on Cars in Context, send it to me, J. Clor at carsincontext.com, and we'll be sure to air your question on the air and maybe have Chris Sawyer, if you're lucky, answer the question.
Or if you're not.
Chris, again, thanks so much for coming to Cars in Context.
You're welcome,
again.
John.
Another great show. We'll have you back real soon. There's so many great things to talk about, and we appreciate your insight. You can catch Chris Sawyer on thevirtualdriver.com, and you can catch us next time. Remember, knowledge is power. So I'm your host, John Clor, and thanks for watching.